Have you ever spent days or weeks working on a website only for the design to look amateur? Do you feel like you're missing some secret all the pros know, and if only you understood, you could create amazing websites too? Well, as it turns out, there is, and it's easy to understand and apply to your own designs. I've been designing websites for over 8 years, and in this video, I'm going to share with you the simple secret to designing amazing looking websites that I wish I knew when I first started. And after I show you the secret, I'm going to walk you through step by step how to create a beautiful website using one rule that fixes common design mistakes you might be making. But before I tell you the secret, I want to quickly mention that for every viewer that watches to the end of this video, I'm going to be donating 1 liter of water to charity water, but more on that later. So, are you ready for the secret? The simple secret is that great websites follow a specific mathematical structure from the smallest element to the largest section that is scientifically proven to make your website look clean and beautiful. So to demonstrate how to do that, I'm going to destroy my own website, designspo.co, and rebuild it using a simple and repeatable system you can use in your own designs. But before we do that, I want to tell you about the benefits of using a mathematical system, because you might be like me. When I first started designing, I wanted everything to be freeform, and I didn't want to follow any rules. But trying to make a great website without learning the rules of design is sort of like trying to write a symphony before you even learn how to write sheet music. But if we do know the rules, we have everything we need to create amazing looking websites super simply. Because when we use a mathematical system, we make our website more beautiful and easier to navigate. We can also free up a lot of mental space for the actual content because we have set rules for the layout, the typography, the spacing, etc. So let's get started building our own mathematical system using the one simple rule I promised to tell you about in the beginning. So, what is a simple rule we can create for our own designs that is actually going to be useful for turning the ideas in our heads into amazing real-life websites? Well, first we know it has to be consistent. It has to be a guiding rule that we can follow 99% of the time that is actually going to improve our designs. Second, it has to be applicable to a wide variety of different decisions. If the rule only applies to one part of the website, it's not a very good rule. Finally, it has to be easy to understand and apply. Anything too complicated and we worry more about actually following the rule than creating an amazing design. So with those criteria in mind, what is the simple rule that you can follow that is easily applicable to a wide variety of circumstances, useful for generating new ideas, and easy to follow? Well, it's called the 4-pixel rule, and it's the #1 secret to instantly improving your design. It basically says that almost every element, section, container, layout, or anything in your design should be divisible by 4 pixels. But that's not all. There are specific rules that apply to each of those elements like text, buttons, or containers, which the rest of this video is designed to help you with. But first, why 4 pixels? Why not 2 pixels or even 1 pixel? Well, with 1 pixel, for example, that's really the same as not having a rule at all. I can make one section 1,371 pixels wide, and the next section 1,145 pixels wide, and I wouldn't be breaking the 1 pixel rule. So it just doesn't fit our criteria for being consistent. The same is true for 2 pixels. There are just too many options to choose from. And 6 pixels, 8 pixels doesn't really work because there are just too few options to choose from. So 4 pixels is the Goldilocks rule to follow. It's simple, all you need to know how to do is multiply or divide to use it, it's consistent, and it's going to help us create new sections of your website really easily. So now let's get to work fixing this design by using the one rule we just learned to create a simple mathematical system that we can use to make this website look great. We're going to start by fixing the width of each section and the space between each section. Now you might be tempted to skip this step because it feels so basic, but what we're doing here is laying the groundwork for creating a visually consistent looking website that's pleasant to look at. In fact, if you mess up here, it's almost impossible to create a good looking website. So how can we use the 4-pixel rule to set our max width and padding? Well, it's simple. For our max width, all we have to do is choose a number that's usually over 1,000 pixels for desktop and also divisible by 4. On the next section on containers, I'll show you how we can choose an exact number for any website, but for now I'm going to go with 1,128 pixels, and I'll show you how we got to that number in a minute. For our padding between sections, you want to go with double the spacing between related elements in your design. For now, I'll set that to 32 pixels, and I'll explain exactly how I got that number in the chapter on intersection design, so don't worry, stick around and I'll show you how you can apply this to your designs as well. But let's go ahead and make those changes, and you can see already a huge improvement in the way our design looks. Now that we have our section set up, it's time to fix all the inconsistencies of those inner elements. I want you to imagine invisible boxes that wrap around these elements. These are called containers, and their size and margin is what we're going to fix here to make your websites look more consistent and visually appealing. This is the most important part of making your website look amazing. There's no faster or more sure way to ruin the way a website looks than by having to move your eye around to different locations every time you go to a new section. So how do we go about fixing these containers? Well, to do that, we need to ask ourselves 3 questions. questions. The first is, what's the most amount of containers you'd ever put in one row? Now, current web design theory actually has a pretty good answer for this, and it's probably higher than you think. The answer is actually 12 containers, because it's a very divisible number. You can cut it in half, thirds, fourths, sixths, and mix and match them to create almost any variation that you want. The second question we have to ask is actually how wide these containers should be. Well, it's honestly up to you, but most designers go with 56, 64, or 72 pixels. That's because they're big enough to fit small elements in a single container, and they're also all divisible by 4. We're going to go with 72 pixels because I think this design will benefit from something a little more spaced out, but the go-to standard is usually 56 pixels. The third question we have to ask ourselves is how much spacing do we want between each container? You can choose between a few standard options like 24, 32, or 40 pixels. We're going to use 24 pixels because it's just the go-to standard for about 80% of websites. So once we've made those decisions, all we have to do is multiply 72 pixels by our 12 containers and add that to 24 pixels by 11 spaces to get 1128 pixels, which is our max width we said earlier. So now let's put those design decisions into practice and see what an incredible difference that made in our design. Now I want to take a second to tell you about the charity that we're sponsoring on this channel before I tell you the rest of the design secrets. They're called Charity Water, and I believe that they are the #1 nonprofit tackling water insecurity right now. They install wells that provide clean drinking water that they actually track so they know exactly how much impact they're having on a community. Also, 100% of public donations go directly to helping people get access to clean drinking water. So to help out, for every view this video gets, I'm going to be donating 1 liter of water to Charity Water. And for every subscriber we have on this channel, I'm going to be donating 10 liters of water to Charity Water. So if you want to support the channel and also a good cause, keep watching and subscribe. Now that we have our containers looking good, we have to fix this weird spacing between components. This is super important to create a visually consistent look that subconsciously ties related components together and visually separates unrelated components. Plus, it's going to really elevate the look of your website. So starting with the smallest spacing for items that are very closely related, like an icon and text and a button, you can do 4 pixels of spacing. Then between items that are closely related, like rows in a menu, you can do 8 pixels of spacing. Then for standard components that are related, like a heading and a subheading, you can double it and do 16 pixels of spacing. Then for unrelated components in the same section, you can do 24 pixels of spacing, or whatever number you chose for the distance between containers in a section. That's also why we chose 32 pixels of spacing between our sections, to give them a little more visual separation than 24 pixels. So let's make our changes and notice how much cleaner and more put together everything is. Now that we're done with spacing, the last thing I want to focus on here is typography. Right now our text is kind of all over the place. And the reason it looks like that is we really don't have a rule for creating a typography system yet, so let's create one. And the reason this is so important is text is where visitors spend 80% of their time. And if your text is hard to read or uncomfortable in any way, it's going to make for a bad experience. Luckily, by following our 4 pixel rule, we can fix that easily. There's a lot of different typography systems out there that use the golden ratio or some other number, but I like this one because it's beginner friendly and produces great results for almost every kind of website. So how do we apply our 4 pixel rule to our typography system? Well, let's start by setting our paragraphs to 16, which is usually the smallest you can go where it still looks legible. Using that as our base, we can set a large paragraph to 20 pixels, a small subheading to 24 pixels, a medium subheading to 28 pixels, a large subheading to 32 pixels, all the way up to our display text, which we only use for the hero at 64 pixels. Now, it's super important to remember to always use the same text sizes and weights for the same purpose on your website. The job of type is to create a visually consistent look and feel so that visitors are never confused when they're on your website. So here's a full list of possible type choices we have using our 4 pixel rule, and here's how we're going to use them on this site specifically. So let's go ahead and make those changes now. And you can see instantly just how that ties everything together. It's the final piece in our design puzzle. So now you know the one simple rule to instantly improving your designs and how to apply it to your website. But if you want to take your designs to the next level and learn the tricks the pros use to create killer websites, you need to check this video out. I break down everything you need to know to create amazing web designs.